It's all yours.
There you go.
Rock and roll. All right, I'm here to talk about a project I'm super excited about. Hopefully, I can get you also very excited about this project. I brought some swag, so if you're just as excited as I am, come up to me at the end of the session. I've got a few t-shirts, some stickers, and I'm here as well to talk about feedback and anything else. There's a clicker here. All right, so a little bit about me. I'm Sebastian Stadil. I'm the CEO of a company called Scalr, which provides commercial DevOps solutions. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about OpenTofu, which is a new project from in the Linux Foundation. So, there we go. All right, so again, super excited to be here to talk about this project. Here's a quick outline of the things I'm going to be talking about. But before we get there, can I get a quick show of hands just to kind of tailor a little bit the time towards. Can you raise your hand if you've heard of Terraform before? Awesome. Can you keep your hand raised if you have heard of OpenTofu? Okay, all right, so I'll spend more time on that section. Rock and roll. Okay, so first of all, what's OpenTofu? If you're on Twitter, you might have seen this meme circulating. Essentially, OpenTofu, it's an open source continuation of the Terraform project. If you haven't seen that, HashiCorp decided in August of last year that they wouldn't license Terraform under an open source license anymore. Very sad moment, but also an opportunity. And what happened is, with a bunch of folks, we got together and we decided to make a fork of it. So really quickly, if you're not familiar with Terraform, not familiar with OpenTofu, it's essentially a declarative model for managing your infrastructure. Declarative means you declare what you want to have, and then OpenTofu does all the complex stuff of provisioning and making sure that your reality of what you've got in AWS conforms to what you've declared in your code. This matters because for me, an open source project is not just the license. When I was talking about an opportunity, what that really means is Terraform for a very long time was open source licensed, but it didn't really have any of the other properties of a really vibrant open source project. For me, a really well-run open source project has an open contribution policy, so anybody can contribute. Has open governance, so that there's a neutral group of folks that decide the direction of the project and what goes in and what is not within scope of the project. And then finally, the decision making for all that has to be open and transparent, because if that doesn't happen, well, you can have a small group of people that decide not to accept your contribution, so you spend a lot of time making your pull request, it doesn't go in, boo-hoo, everyone's sad, everyone loses out from it. So OpenTofu is a level 4 open source project, meaning it has all 4 of those characteristics. And that's the opportunity we saw when HashiCorp decided not to make Terraform open source anymore. We saw the opportunity to make this into a really awesome, fully community open source project. So now, we did this over the span of the last 12 months. It's been awesome. So now, as of today, Tofu, or OpenTofu, is a stable member of the, I guess it's a project inside the Linux Foundation, meaning all of the governance processes from the Linux Foundation are applied here. And it's backed by lots of companies. I'll get to that in a second. It's still MPL licensed, just like Terraform used to be. It's a great license. Why the MPL? Because we can't, when you're relicensing a project or making a fork, you can't be more permissive. You can only be more restrictive, and that's only under certain circumstances. So it's still MPL licensed, which is an open source license. There's now an open contribution policy. I'm going to come up with a couple examples later on why this is super important. But the real proof of that is if you look at if you go to the Terraform GitHub repository and look at who makes commits to it, and you do that same comparison with OpenTofu, you'll see that there's a lot more contributions that come from non-affiliated individuals. So it's just a much more welcoming community, a lot less gated, and that's important to get some of the best ideas from everyone. Also, OpenTofu is openly governed, and this is a super important part. I really want to stress this. if you've ever tried to get anything into the Terraform repository, the decision-making process is obscure. You don't really know if something doesn't go in. You don't know why. You always feel that like, they don't necessarily close out your pull request because they don't like it. They just like leave it open for years and years. And so there's just a lot of problems with that. So OpenTofu has the governance policy that inherits from the Linux Foundation. And all of the decisions, we make those public. We publish them. You can follow them. And if you disagree with anything, well, you can write in the comments why you disagree, and then we'll consider that. Again, it's an open source project in every sense of the word. And so this is a very, very important part. And then finally, well, yeah, I guess I was talking about that. But again, very important. And if you can go to any issue and you can see the whole history of including the core developers that are working on the project. You can see why they chose a particular approach versus another. So it can be very educational to follow this. And then I think there was an earlier talk today that talked about the difference between like single organization open source projects and community open source projects. So based on that, OpenTofu falls into the latter, kind of like Linux, kind of like Kubernetes and many other projects. So there's many organizations that contribute to it, and so it's not beholden to any single stakeholder, and the power is very distributed. Oh, and I forgot one part here, and very important as well. It's now used by some of the biggest financials in the world, insurance companies, banks, intelligence agencies, government. Yeah, it's been very widely adopted. Cool. So a very important part for everyone here to take away is that OpenTofu is a separate project from Terraform. That means we're not just looking, or we're not just kind of trying to make this a clone of Terraform. It's its own project, and there's now features in Tofu that are not in Terraform, and so it's Tofu's pulling ahead in terms of functionality, etc. Very important part. An important part of Tofu is being having as close as possible parity in functionality with Terraform. But our approach to this is to be community driven. So that means that if there is some functionality in a non-open source version of Terraform that you care very much about, open a PR or create an issue, tell us about what that functionality is, and we core developers, without looking at the Terraform code, for legal reasons we can't do that, we will implement as close as possible that functionality, but that issue needs to be voted by the community, and will be community driven in deciding what features we should implement in Tofu to maintain that parity. Yeah, and then it says there, we implement clean room design for doing all that. A little bit of jumping back in time a little bit. The 1.6 version came out, I think, in January. It didn't have any amazing or new features or anything. The goal of the 1.6 release back then was really just to get something that was open source into your hands that was as stable as possible, and mission accomplished. Since then, every major version comes out with one flagship feature. Sometimes there's two. I think in 1.8 there's probably two that you can consider flagship. But the release cycle is when we, like for every release, we decide on a really cool feature, and when that feature is ready, boom, that's when the release comes out. And everything else that's ready comes out at the same time, and stuff that's not ready will have to wait for the next major release. So that's the release cycle. I'll talk a little bit more about what's cool in 1.7 and 1.8 a little bit later. Or now. Yeah, I guess that slide moved around. So really cool in 1.7, and one of the reasons why I care so much about open governance for open source projects, this end-to-end state encryption, or the ability for you to encrypt your state file locally instead of relying on some third party, or instead of like using S3 to encrypt your state file, that has been there have been 3 separate PRs made by the community that try to get into Terraform. The Terraform was founded was created in 2015. The first of these first PR that implemented this functionality was in 2016, again in 2020, and again in 2021. So there's been 3 separate attempts to get the ability to encrypt your state locally into Terraform. The problem is that HashiCorp has decided that they've decided that they didn't want that feature into Terraform. They've not disclosed why. There's speculation of whether that's because it's conflicted with some of their functionality in their commercial offerings. We don't know. But it's a feature, it's functionality that the community has voted on, has implemented, and never got in. Well, that was the one feature that we chose to lead with in the first differentiated offering of release of OpenTofu, and it's super cool. Since then, it's been adopted by lots of organizations. Lots of people are happy with that. And again, encryption is good for security, so we very much encourage the security-minded organizations to migrate from Terraform to OpenTofu in order to benefit from it. Speaking of, migrating is dead easy, and I'll prove it to you. First of all, OpenTofu 1.6 is binary compatible with Terraform 1.6. That means that any code that you've already written that's going to work with Terraform 1.6 will work with OpenTofu 1.6. It's compatible with every plugin, it's compatible with all the providers, compatible with all the modules you've written, and there's even an OpenTofu registry, and there's also library.tf, which is another community project that's useful. So it's very easy to start migrating, and kind of here's a flow chart for this. If you have an existing project, if it uses a version of Terraform that's open source but pre 1.5.7, then you should upgrade to the last open source version of Terraform first, and then once you've done that, then you can go from 1.5.7 to OpenTofu 1.6. If you're using 1.5.7, then you can upgrade directly to OpenTofu 1.6. But if you're creating a new project, well, you might as well start with the latest version of OpenTofu, which is 1.8. Again, just swap out the binaries, and that's really all you have to do if you follow that flowchart. If you have used Jenkins or whatever to build some automation on top, just create an alias between Tofu and Terraform binaries, and you're good to go. And the project's now been used in production for maybe 8 months now, with no significant issues, or any issues get fixed quickly, so it's stable. I'm going to skip over this because you guys overwhelmingly know Terraform. So yeah. All right, so I've been talking about the open governance part of things. I've been talking about how easy it is to contribute, but I want to prove it to you. First of all, contribution, like any open source project, very easy. You can contribute by evangelizing. Actually, evangelizing is probably the #1 thing that the project needs at this point, is kind of just getting more people to talk about it and adopt it. You don't necessarily have to put in a patch, but do go on the repository, vote up the issues that you care about, etc. All right, so I talked about end-to-end state encryption that came out in 1.7. If you look at the date here, I think August 29, 2023 is like a day after we opened the repository, so people care very much about this issue. And ideas, what people want, all come from the community. I know I'm saying this over and over again, but I believe very strongly that that's how you get the best projects. When you kind of pair up all the smarts that everyone has, all the ideas, you vote on prioritizing things, and that's how we prioritize what to work on. We did that again with 1.8. This is a much more recent release, I think from like 2 months ago, a month ago. which is variables and local evaluation. What this, you can see a quick screenshot what that looks like. Essentially, if you work on a sufficiently large Terraform or OpenTofu project, you're going to have lots of duplication. This is a fantastic way to start reducing that. There's a lot more information about this specific feature in the documentation. There's a blog post about it. Welcome you to spend time there. And then another important or cool feature in 1.8 is provider mocking. If you're a provider or module author, I'm sure you spend a lot of time testing. You spend a lot of time figuring out who's using your modules or your providers and working with them to identify, fix it, etc. This makes it a little bit easier for you to test and catch errors in your provider ahead of actually having to provision resources. So if there's a typo, it's kind of dumb to have to provision some AWS machines just to catch that. So provider mocking is a fantastic way of starting to increase stability of your project to be able to iterate quicker on all that. And we are now working on the 1.9 release. We don't have a monopoly on good ideas. There's plenty of voting that's going on right now on what should be included in the 1.9 release. We are getting a little bit closer to deciding what should be in there, but we are soliciting everyone from the community to chime in, vote on what's important to them, suggest new things that we could work on. And that's how we're going to continue making the project great. If you got a little piece of, well, maybe you can consult the slides later on, but issue 297 is a really good template and format to figure out like what a very good process is for suggesting something, giving all the context necessary, so that you can drive alignments internally on or convince folks why this particular issue is helpful. All right, so I did my best to get over this so that we can get to the real meat of this and for the Q&A. Quick things like these, I get a bunch of questions fairly frequently, so I'm going to go through those first. And then after that, if you got questions, please let me know. If you got feedback on things that have been frustrating in Terraform, things that have been frustrating in OpenTofu, please let me know. And also you can come up to me at the end of the talk. So here are the 3 questions I get the most frequently. What about all the Terraform providers? So all the providers that exist for Terraform, they also work for OpenTofu. We have not seen any case where that doesn't work. If it does, by some reason not work with, you have a provider that works with Terraform that does not work with OpenTofu, do let us know. We'll investigate, figure out exactly what broke, and we'll get that fixed quickly because OpenTofu is nothing without all its providers, and so we care very much about compatibility for that. What about later Terraform versions? So HashiCorp is still developing, albeit a little bit slowly, developing Terraform. In later versions, 1.67, I think 9's out as well. There have been features that are interesting. Like I said before, if HashiCorp releases something for Terraform that you find very cool, the way to get that into OpenTofu is to go to GitHub, go to under issues, and describe exactly what the functionality does. Do not copy or paste any code. Even better, don't look at any of the Terraform code. Just tell us what the feature is, what it does, what the inputs, outputs are, etc. And then we'll consider that, and then we have a whole process by which a core developer will look at that, look at the issue, and then decide to pass that on to another who will implement that without, again, any of the Terraform source code being involved in the process. So that's how we're going to maintain parity, and that's how we handle functionality in later Terraform versions. Third, and a very frequent question that I get, will there be other forks of HashiCorp products? Yeah, maybe not, I don't know. We only care about Terraform and OpenTofu because for us, it's a lot more of a language than it is a project. It's a platform, or it's a language that a lot of us have built things on, and it really sucks to have the thing that you've spent a lot of time building on top of to be, to have the rug pulled from under you on that. So we care very much about that. A lot of the other HashiCorp products, like Vault or there's a bunch of them, are not necessarily language. They're not languages. They're not necessarily things that a lot of people have built on top of. And so, so we personally only care about the Terraform OpenTofu side of things. But IBM has, and I can't really comment on that for lots of reasons, but IBM has created a fork of Vault called OpenBow. I think I've got a slide on that. Yeah. So if you go to ibm.biz/OpenBow, you can see that fork of Vault. It's all really unknown what's going to happen to this project because IBM also is trying to buy HashiCorp. So you might jump from Vault to OpenBow and go right back into Vault. So no idea. But that's the only other project that I know of that has a fork. Okay, so with that, we've got 4 minutes and 30 seconds exactly for questions and feedback. But I got some stickers here. If you email this particular address, I can also ship some to you, and you can join the Slack there. So in the 4 minutes and 14 seconds, what questions do we have?
Come on, people, big applause.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question here.
Well, I remember perfectly the moment
time.
where HashiCorp closed the source of Terraform because I was studying backend development and I was like listing technologies to study, and one of them was Terraform. So I had the name of Terraform and HashiCorp in my mind, and I remember reading that it was open source and was related to a company, and always when you see something open source related to a company, you have some concerns about what's going to happen to that project. And I remember where I saw the news that they closed the source and start seeing news that this is an open project to replace Terraform. This is a project that was being developed and now it's important. And I remember the open Terraform manifesto.
Yeah, the manifesto. Yep.
I remember starting it, and you mentioned that it was a wonderful year from that moment where the opportunity to develop a really free and open source option, and I remember where the Linux umbrella covered OpenTofu when it has already the number OpenTofu. How was that moment for you when you saw HashiCorp close the source of Terraform? What gonna do now?
Yeah, fantastic question. First of all, like the first few hours after seeing that, I was like, oh fuck, what are we gonna do? Like there's just so much we've built on top of Terraform. Like we were like, fuck. Hopefully swear words are okay.
No, it's
I'm
okay
not gonna be
today.
kicked out. Okay.
It's okay.
Sorry.
We all said it.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. So there was a moment where really there's panic, right? And so then I emailed some of my friends asking them like, hey, what do you think of this? And then within like maybe a couple hours of the announcement, we were like, okay, well, we got to fork this. And then we're like, okay, well, that's a lot of work. We're going to have to, hire developers. We're going to have to, like, there's going to be a lot of things involved. But like after rallying everyone, there's just so many people that love Terraform. There's so many people that have built things on top that it went from like, oh, fuck, to wait a second. That means if we fork it, there's all these other things we could do. We could finally get state encryption in there. We can finally, like, maybe we can even make this a Linux Foundation project, right? So then we went from panic to huge amount of excitement. And then all of this, like the first 48, 36 hours of this were like, were fantastic because we were getting, we published the manifesto. We were getting like hundreds of people emailing us to participate in the project. It was a fantastic time. Yeah, I did not sleep much during those hours.
Awesome. We have one more question for them.
Well, in the community part, I saw that you have a Slack in order to be on the community. Do you have an open source alternative in order to build a community that is not Slack?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's totally a fair question. It's a discussion that happens once in a while. Really, what we're trying to do is we're trying to have GitHub be the place for all of the discussions and kind of like all of the debates, etc. Because we really want to be transparent in the decision-making process. And so we're trying very hard to make GitHub the center of the community as far as technical discussions, etc. go. Slack is there for camaraderie, for connecting amongst people that use Tofu so that we can talk about our experiences with it, etc. So stuff that's adjacent to the project, and because everyone uses Slack, it's just so much easier to have that. But maybe at some point that will change. But really, what the takeaway here is we're trying very hard to maintain GitHub as the heart of the project as far as community goes, etc. And GitHub provides some great tools for that to happen.
Do we have more questions? I have one. Why do you call it OpenTofu?
Yeah, because tofu is a terrible name here in Argentina because you guys make some of the best meat I've ever had. I should have thought. Yeah, I should have seen that question
You asked
coming.
a Rocky Linux question.
Yeah, it's a tough one. No, actually, it's a great question. So we really cared a lot about the TF, keeping TF as the extension for searchability, making sure the docs are. But then we can't really if you use just tofu, then people Google for tofu and they don't find the open source project. They find some other stuff that is not related at all. So we had to add the open in front of it to make it more Googleable. But the binary is tofu. So we wanted to keep the TF. We wanted it to be short, and there was really not that many things that that passed the intersection of all those constraints. And then again, we had the community vote on of a few options, which ones we wanted, which ones they preferred, and the intersection between what the community wanted, the constraints we had, and what the Linux Foundation was able to trademark was Tofu and OpenTofu.
Awesome. Any questions? No? Do you know how big is the community right now? Roughly?
Yeah, roughly. So as of a few days ago, there was 1.8 million hits on the registry per day. That's growing. That grows like 30% month over month. It's growing really fast, but it's not just the. First of all, I hate tracking. We all of us at OpenTofu, we don't want to track any users or any PII or anything like that. But we do have those kinds of metrics. But besides just metrics are nice, etc. But what's really cool is to see very large organizations that have made long-term bets on Terraform to have them switch to OpenTofu, to have them switch easily, and to have zero issues doing it. It's just super rewarding, right? Because you're now not just seeing a number increase, you're seeing people that you've actually helped. And it's that kind of person-to-person thing that's, at least for me, very energizing.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
We have some questions in Swapcar. Andres is question now has local variables for backend blocks and a lot of amazing stuff. What features do you expect before a version 2? And for God's sake, why not Terraform? Oh.
Okay, so those are two separate questions.
Separate
yeah,
questions.
I'll tackle the Terraform one really quickly.
And Andres is not sleeping because of the name. You're saying, I cannot sleep because of that. You should sleep, Andres.
Okay, well, you're going to sleep a lot better knowing that Terraform is actually too close to Terraform. There's only one letter difference. And that would create a huge amount of trademark issues. So
and lawyers involved.
Yeah, lawyers involved, etc. But really what we care about is we care about you being able to use Tofu. and we don't want any organization to think to themselves, well, there's ongoing litigation because HashiCorp has tried their worst at disrupting stuff. So we want there to be as legally clean as possible, and so we worked with the Linux Foundation's council to make sure that we had something that was very defensible. And by the way, quick shout out, if there's anybody from the Linux Foundation tuning in here, incredible organization to work with. Super highly talented people. They have been nothing but outstanding to work with, and obviously on the developer side, like, we have a lot of people to thank for making the project happen, but the Linux Foundation has also been instrumental in that. So that's the Terraform thing. What was the other question?
What feature do you expect before a version 2?
I'll answer a slightly adjacent question, which is I don't have a monopoly on good ideas. There's a lot of smart people in a lot of smart people out there, and rather than hearing what bullshit I can come up with here on stage, I'd actually encourage folks to like over the next week when you're using Tofu or Terraform, think of the things that are frustrating to you. Think of the things that could make the project a lot better, and then create an issue and talk about it. That's how we're going to make the project a lot better. That's how the project has advanced so far. And yeah, there you go.
Amazing. And one last, in 15 seconds, Terraform registry was an acceptable source of documentation. What can you tell about OpenTofu registry?
Yeah, so little, oh my God, 3 seconds.
No.
Okay, so the Terraform registry made by HashiCorp, in the terms of service, you are not allowed to use that registry unless you use a HashiCorp version of Terraform. So even if you fork Terraform, you're not allowed to use that registry. So first of all, like, you can kind of almost forget about the HashiCorp registry. OpenTofu has a registry. It's been widely adopted, and we're also working on a UI for it. So all that's getting a lot better. If you're on your phone, you can try library.tf, which is a community project for seeing like all the providers, etc., on top of both Terraform and OpenTofu. But as far as documentation, etc., I'm not sure I understood that part of the question.
No one.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. You've been great.